Here at Andy's Frozen Custard, we take our quality of our products very seriously. And that all starts with the quality of the frozen custard itself. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we need to do with our bucket of custard after it's made to make sure it maintains highest quality for as long as possible. So at this point, we are going to assume that the custard coming out of the machine is of the proper firmness and consistency, and that you're using a slide that's cold and free of ice, that you're using a bucket that's cold and free of ice. So now, the first thing that we want to make sure we do is always use a bucket that's been well scraped. You don't want to have custard remnants from a previous custard run left in your bucket, either caked to the sides or on the bottom. You always want to make sure you thoroughly scrape that bucket so that none of those hard pieces continue to get harder and harder and harder until eventually they end up in somebody's treat and they have an experience that we don't want them to have with it. When you scrape the bucket out, you want to scrape down all the sides and get it to the bottom of the bucket. Then you want to scrape it all forward into one ball, and then you can pick it up out with the spade and go ahead and melt it down or move it over to another bucket if it's not too hard. So now that we've got a bucket that we can run quality custard into and be confident about, we want to make sure that we are packing it properly as the bucket is filling. You have to get rid of those air pockets or it's going to make the custard get soft. When you pack the custard, you need to shift loose custard towards the corner of the bucket and then stomp it down and then leave it. You want to be able to pack it with the least amount of movements as possible, because the more you're working the custard with the spade, the softer the custard's going to get. So shift it over, stomp it down into a corner, and then leave it. Something else you want to do is make sure that you don't overfill your buckets. A bucket that is filled too high is also going to get soft. So you want to make sure you leave a few inches between the top of the bucket and where the custard fills up to, so that the whole custard bucket doesn't get soft and unusable. Once you've finished making a bucket of custard, you're going to be able to use that for the next hour. Because here at Andy's Frozen Custard, we promise our customers that the custard they're served is no more than an hour old. You want to keep the freezer lid closed. The custard freezers aren't designed to be able to keep the custard cold in an open environment. You need to keep it closed when it's not in use. There's a few things you need to remember when you're scooping out of the bucket of custard. First of all, you do not want to dig a trench. You do not want to continually dip out of the middle of the bucket and you end up with a deep trench in the center and high custard walls along the sides and back. When you scoop, you want to evenly scoop the highest points of the custard so that the custard level drops slowly as you're scooping. The sides of the bucket and the bottom of the bucket are the coldest surfaces that the custard touches. So if you're scooping out of the middle of the custard and leaving the custard making contact with the sides of the bucket, that custard's going to get too hard before you can use it. So you want to make sure you're scraping the custard away from the walls into a concentrated mass. You want balls of custard in your bucket, not thin, spread out walls of custard. So when it comes to custard in your bucket, we want balls, not walls.